The mother of all lawsuits? Maybe. Filed by the Democrats, Democracy Forward, and Norm Eisen against the Trump administration. Shock and awe, meet shock and awe, legal style. We break it down on the Midas Touch Network and on Legal AF, the podcast. Take a listen. Carol, why don't you tell our audience about this new filing? You circulated it internally with the Midas people. I was really excited by it. And talk about the new filing that was just made against the Trump administration, and then we'll talk about what we think the impact of it's going to be.
Yeah, well, I don't have any inside information, that's for sure. All I have is the complaint that you've read. It's an incredible complaint. It's like, this is a monster lawsuit. This is the lawsuit of all lawsuits. All these smaller cases that have been brought because of what DOGE has done, walking into the federal government and literally trying to dismantle it through executive order. And DOGE has thousands of employees have lost their jobs, and the federal government is shrinking, and they're doing lasting damage. I mean, damage that I think is going to be very hard to recover from, right? When you don't fund, for example, a scientific program that's doing research, and those scientists no longer can work on something. Not only are you not having the medical advances, you're losing that expertise, you're losing that knowledge, and that is just stopped in its tracks. The other thing that's happening is people are going elsewhere, right? Whether it's to work in different industries or sectors, et cetera. And so what DOGE is doing is trying to dismantle the federal government, all the people who work in all the agencies, which are supposed to be non-political, right? Only the heads of the agencies are supposed to be political. And that's what the president always appoints, the head of an agency, and with the advice and consent of the Senate. The employees remain the same because they have institutional knowledge. They are experts in whatever it is that they're doing, whether it's clean water or the environment or science or medicine or law, whether it's the Department of Justice, whatever it is, the FBI, I mean, the training that goes into being a law enforcement officer or any number of these other agencies, the Pentagon, you name it. These are significantly very important agencies with people who you don't just pluck someone off the street. It takes years and years and years and years to develop an expertise to be able to work competently in one of these agencies. And it's one of the crown jewels of the United States of America, frankly. And it's one of the reasons I think we have such a great country. And what has DOGE done? They've come in and they've just firing people left and right. And there's been a bunch of lawsuits that have successfully gotten, whether it's temporary restraining orders or preliminary injunctions, but they've been sort of these singular, I don't want to call them one-offs because they're quite significant, some of these lawsuits, and some have been lost as well. But this one is a monster case. It's like everybody in the world suing everybody in the world is kind of how I look at it. It's a 115-page complaint, which is quite long. The caption alone, okay, the caption that's like plaintiff whoever versus defendant whoever. Usually it's just like this little square at the top of a complaint that's filed. The caption alone is 5 pages long. That's how many plaintiffs and defendants there are. It is unbelievable. And I'm going to just read from the press release that was released about it, because I think it really succinctly synthesized what this is about. It's plaintiffs are a coalition of labor organizations, nonprofit groups, and local governments that filed this complaint to hold unlawful and stop the unconstitutional dismantling of the federal government by the President of the United States on a scale unprecedented in this country's history and in clear excess of his authority. So it goes on to say that reorganization and massive reductions in force across federal agencies violate core constitutional concepts of separation of powers. Because why is that? Because of what we just said. It's very, very clear that only Congress can create an agency. President can't. The Congress creates an agency, and Congress funds the agency and gives it money, appropriates money to an agency. And it's the president who can then interpret, right? It's come in and appoint the head of it and kind of interpret through policy how that statute that created that is going to be enforced. So they put together this huge coalition, again, this nationwide labor organizations, many, many nonprofit groups, and several governments, several cities and counties. And they include California, Illinois, Maryland, Texas, Washington, and others to challenge the Trump administration and this massive reorganization of the federal government without legislative authority. So it's just this incredible lawsuit that just by the sheer breadth of it is what's so incredible. It says, since taking office, Donald Trump has attempted to usurp the powers of Congress through his attacks on the federal government and its basic functions, which hundreds of millions of Americans rely on every day. That's a quote from Norm Eisen, who's spearheading this lawsuit. The separation of powers was created by our nation's framers to prevent this very sort of unchecked power. The American people will not stand for these clearly illegal and unconstitutional efforts by this administration, which seek to upend the most basic tenets of our nation's constitutional democracy. So it's a very large, sweeping case, and it, rather than individually kind of going after these various agencies that Trump is trying to take down and dismantle, it's doing kind of what Trump is doing, which is flooding the zone and tackling it all at once, because it's literally the first defendant there is like the president of the United States and then every single one of his cabinet members. So it's an incredible lawsuit, and I think it's going to have sweeping just implications. And it went, as this goes.
And it's necessary because you have to meet. That's what I like about Norm's focus here. You have to meet, flood the zone, and shock and awe, which is what Donald Trump exhibited during the first 100 days, with exactly the same thing back. An out of control presidency that's issued more executive orders than any other president in history already, combined with just the sheer volume of lawsuits. You need to kind of get one big mother of them all lawsuit together. And I'm glad that he was able to pull that all together. And we're in the right courts. I think we're the right judges. And, the more we can, as out of control as Donald Trump is, I'll leave my point on this. As out of control as Donald Trump is, and his Department of Justice and his FBI and all of that, can you imagine a world where there weren't the Norm Eisens and others, and Court Accountability Action, and Mark Elias, and Democracy Now! And Democracy Forward, the American Civil Liberties Union, and the attorneys general in 22 states? Can you imagine a world where they didn't exist and there weren't close to 200 lawsuits filed and 200 injunctions obtained, and the winning record already at the United States Supreme Court? How much more unleashed and out of control and lawless Donald Trump would be without the pushback that's being provided by the court system. We don't have it anywhere else. We got a wet noodle and a doormat of Congress. We can't count on anybody, even the way we could in the first Trump administration, to whether it's a Joint Chiefs of Staff or a general there, or one or two members of his cabinet, or anybody that seems to have any type of morals or values or character other than pure, unadulterated greed, and coupled with unbridled attempts at power grab. That defines his entire cabinet. So we don't have any of that to rely on. It. Somebody like Mark Milley is going to put his hand between Donald Trump and the nuclear button, or call his counterpart in China and say, don't worry, I'm not going to let a Chinese war break out over this guy. We don't have that. So what are we left with? We're left with the thing that you and I talk about at length, which is the law and politics intersection. That this is the break the glass moment. We are, willingly or unwillingly, whether we wanted to be this or not, we are the foot soldiers to defend the Constitution. And we do it in our way with this community, talking truth to each other here, shoulder to shoulder, in a fellowship that we're building on the Midas Touch Network and on Legal AF. And then people take it from there, talk about the action part. They take it from there into the courtrooms and the courthouses. I mean, you can't, if we lived in a world where there weren't the federal judges like Judge Zinnes, Judge Amy Berman Jackson, Beryl Howell, Jeb Boasberg, Judge, the list goes on, Judge Kahn, all the judges that we've talked about, the judges up in New Hampshire and Massachusetts and Washington and in California and DC. Think how much worse this would be, because every moment that we're able to tie Donald Trump and his Department of Justice up and exhaust them and tie them down and stop their progression is one less day on the clock between now and the midterms. Donald Trump knows he's the lamest of lame ducks. Donald Trump knows, and if he didn't know it, he knows it now from these polls, that the chances of him being able to grow a brain and fix this problem in the next 16 or 18 months is virtually nil. So blue, there's going to be a red bloodbath. You think the red wedding during Game of Thrones was bad? Wait till you see what's going to happen, hopefully, at the House and the Senate when the Democrats take over both. So he's got to, he's on borrowed time, and that's why we're seeing maximum destruction. And that's why cases like you just described are so important as we continue to get these injunctions after injunctions after injunctions. And Donald Trump doesn't care, because that's not why he ran for office. He also doesn't care because every injunction he uses for political expediency and political capital to try to, I don't know, it's not working, whatever he thinks he's doing with it, but to try to continue to make his point and support MAGA principles. But that ain't working either. So,
well, what doesn't make any sense to me, Popok, is just do it the right way. You control Congress. You control the House and the Senate.
No executive orders. Do it through laws.
Correct. Just fine. You want to dismantle the federal government? You control them. They have proven themselves. Congress has shown that they are essentially going to do whatever he wants. MAGA has complete control currently over the entire Congress and the presidency. So do it the right way, and then none of this would happen. But instead, it's like this lawlessness.
Right. I think it's a combination. I think, one, he really doesn't think he has the votes, that there'll be enough peel away where Hakeem Jeffries, who has eaten Donald Trump's lunch and that of Mike Johnson a number of times, because I think he's really the shadow speaker of the House. There's just not enough votes to do the I mean, when you read these executive orders, and I know you have, one after another, from birthright citizenship all the way to the new one I just did a hot take on, which is unleashing the police department on Americans to make more aggressive policing. That's not the problem in America. The problem in America is not too aggressive, not aggressive enough police. That's not the problem. Nobody thought that was the problem. So this stuff would never get through Congress. But he's just paying his debts one after another with these ridiculous executive. But you're right. Some of it he could have probably squeaked through with Congress, but he's got a feckless guy who probably doesn't trust in Mike Johnson. He's got a crazy coalition. What do you call her? Green, Marjorie Taylor Greens of the world, all that Tea Party Republican thing in there. And, it's very reliable. Somebody hands him a folder, he takes out a Sharpie and he signs it. And until we get a ruling, which may be coming soon from the United States Supreme Court, not in the shadow docket, not on procedure, but on the merits, when they start reaching the merits of cases against him, and they start talking about executive orders, as they've said in the past, is the weakest type of order to ever enforce, because it has to color inside the lines of law by Congress. Once the real separation of powers issue, the spending clause, all of those issues really get decided by the Supreme Court or others, I think he's going to have to change his tactic, because you're right, the executive order thing is not defensible, and I think he starts losing in big numbers at the Supreme Court. Welcome back. I helped found Legal AF about 5 years ago. It's starting to sound like Abraham Lincoln at the Gettysburg Address. 7 years ago, we formed Legal AF. And if you didn't know what Legal AF stood for, now you do. We sit at the intersection of law and politics. It's a podcast like no other, brought to you by lawyers, practicing lawyers, constitutional scholars, and the rest. But we don't blow smoke or sunshine. And we bring you into the details without being patronizing, and we teach it to you in a way that helps grow this fellowship and this community together. Legal AF, the podcast, the way to support it. Wednesdays and Saturdays, 8 p.m. Eastern time on this YouTube channel, for at least the one for Midas Touch. Hit the subscribe button here. Also on Legal AF, the YouTube channel, Legal AF MTN, we got a brand new Substack. It's called Legal AF. What else? That I curate 4 or 5 different pieces of content every day. I do a morning AF roundup you're not going to want to miss. So until my next Legal AF contribution, I'm Michael Popok. I'm Michael Popok, and I got some big news for our audience. Most of you know me as the co-founder of Midas Touch's Legal AF. and the Legal AF YouTube channel, or as a 35-year national trial lawyer. Now building on what we started together on Legal AF, I've launched a new law firm, the Popok Firm, dedicated to obtaining justice through compassionate and zealous legal representation. At the Popok Firm, we are focused on obtaining justice for those who have been injured or damaged by a life-altering event, by securing the highest dollar recoveries. I've been tirelessly fighting for justice for the last 35 years, so my own law firm organically building on my Legal AF work just feels right. And I've handpicked a team of top-tier trial fighters and settlement experts throughout all 50 states known as big auto injury attorneys who have the know-how to beat heartless insurance companies, corporations, government entities, and their attorneys. Big Auto's attorneys working with my firm are rock stars in their respective states and collectively responsible for billions of dollars in recoveries. So if you or a loved one have been on the wrong side of a catastrophic auto, motor vehicle, rideshare, or truck accident, suffered a personal injury, or been the victim of medical malpractice, employment harassment or discrimination, or suffered a violation of your civil and constitutional rights, then contact the Popok Firm today at 1-877-POPOK-AF or by visiting my website at www.thepopokfirm.com and fill out a free case evaluation form. And if we determine that you have a case and you sign with us, we don't get paid unless you do. The Popok Firm, fighting for your justice every step of the way.